Yeah, this is the 50th anniversary of Lyndon Johnson declaring the war on poverty, and the Southern California Association of Governments is commemorating the event with a summit on the 20th of August. Here to talk with us today about that summit is Steve Lambert of the 2020 Network.
Hi, Bob. Thank you for having me here.
Glad you could make it. There was a roundtable discussion on Wednesday this week, and a number of issues were put on the table. The most striking to me was the incredibly close connection between level of education and poverty.
Oh, and that is the magic bullet in all of this. If we can fix that, we can begin to fix the job problem and the poverty problem. If you look at various counties in Southern California, those with the lowest level of educational attainment, in other words, those where kids don't graduate high school or barely get by high school, will have the highest poverty levels. And it's interesting because those numbers don't simply translate to them as they become adults, but translate to their children and subsequent generations.
Now, this seems to be something that requires cooperation between many different agencies. There's not just one agency, one group that can attack the problem. What are you seeing happening out there?
Well, that's absolutely right. I think historically we have tried to attack this in silos. Schools do their thing, businesses do their thing, government does whatever government does, but the three of them never work together. And then you throw in nonprofits that do their thing, and you put them all together in a room, and there's a great opportunity to start modeling programs. For example, can businesses and schools create partnerships that create sort of old school vocational training, the thing that we got rid of 20, 30 years ago?
Right. Another thing that I took away from that meeting was the prevalence of transportation issues in contributing to poverty. Can you speak of that briefly?
Totally. You live in a community, the nearest job that you can fill is 15 miles away. How are you going to get there if you don't have the means to get there? And that's why projects like the Gold Line Foothill Extension through our area right here is so important. It's not just a means of getting people from one place to another, but it's a great opportunity to become, and pardon the metaphor, an economic engine for the entire region. And right now there's talk going on about how can we bring together educational institutions, all the colleges and universities, the Caltechs and so on, to create a tech corridor around that area. Right. That unites workers with jobs, with technology, and uplifts the entire area.
Another thing I took away from that discussion on Wednesday was the fact that this is not an isolated instance. We have 25% of children in the area growing up in poverty, but that's not solely a problem limited to them. They're the haves and the have-nots, but they're very closely linked. They're tied together with this issue.
Sure. One of the great political opportunities in this whole discussion is, historically poverty has been a Democratic Party type issue. But if you look at it realistically, the greater the poverty level, the greater the cost on the rest of society. That becomes more of a Republican Party type issue. So you can attack it from all sides. The haves, in many ways, have more to lose from all of this than the have-nots. The have-nots have already lost.
Right. And I would assume that the have-nots, if they're productive and they're working, they become consumers, they become taxpayers, they become contributors to society in every possible way.
Right. And the key there is to create a bridge between the have-nots and the haves. In the past we had something called a middle class. We don't have that anymore in this country. And so how do we create that? Because right now, the people at the low end of the spectrum really have nothing to aspire to. Where are they going to go? Are you going to go from poverty to being a bank executive? Probably not. So we need to fortify that middle class.
Yeah, and there seems to be a little bit of a concern in the area of low-income housing, where we build low-income housing and we go into that project with all of the best intentions, but often people who go into low-income housing just stay there.
They're warehoused. And that's why many people in a community don't want low-income housing in their neighborhoods. The reality is there's huge demand for low-income housing. So if you can align that with social services that allow people to move out of dependency into self-sufficiency, so that their goal isn't to stay in affordable housing the rest of their lives. Their goal is to move on and buy a home, so on. The Habitat for Humanity model.
Okay. As we get to the end here, I know that there is a summit coming up on August 20th. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's going to bring together stakeholders from throughout the area, 6-county area. It's going to be educators, government leaders, business leaders. It's going to be held at the Exposition Center in LA, August 20th, all day. You can get more information at www.scag.ca.gov.
Okay. Steve, thank you for your
Thank
time
you.
this morning.
Appreciate it,
your
Bob.
being here.
Thanks.